Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carl Soule, and for the next half hour, I'm going to be talking about some of the new announcements in the motion graphics world using After Effects. It's been a very, very interesting year for us. In the 2015 timeframe, about a year ago, I was up here on stage showing you guys the fruits of the first release that has benefited from a multi-year process of kind of rewriting the foundation of the code base in After Effects. After Effects is over 20 years old, and we had kind of reached a plateau in the type of performance that we could see inside of After Effects. So about 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago, the team decided to take the time and go through and rewrite the core engine inside of After Effects, kind of modernize the code and modularize the code, make it so it's a little bit easier to make changes and kind of take out sections and put in improved sections in the code from what we had before. And we saw the first examples of this last year in 2015 with interactive performance improvements, where for the first time I could actually start doing adjustments inside the project panel. I could twirl down individual layers inside of a comp and actually see the previewing continue and be persistent within After Effects. So there's a lot that you could do while a composition was actually running and playing back. That was kind of part one of this process. And we're now starting to see some of the additional refinements and enhancements that are going on with this. One of the first things that I want to talk about is actually a new playback component for audio-video that's being added into After Effects as we speak, that's going to provide some really nice benefits for smoother, faster preview, real-time preview inside of After Effects for not only video, but for the first time ever, full synchronized audio-video within After Effects. I'm going to go ahead and turn up my volume here. So you can see that the audio and video in this example are actually fully synchronized, even though this is it's a series of nested comps. There's about 20 different nested comps. You can see kind of the chain here, the little breadcrumbs about how deep and how many nested comps that we actually have going on here. And yet, with the preview functions, you know, again, I can go through and scrub to any point, and the audio stays perfectly in sync with the video, and we're getting full real-time playback of every frame inside of After Effects. So the preview functions, there have been over the last year since we first introduced this, a number of additional enhancements and additional options. When you're doing the preview, what we used to call RAM preview, we're now simply just calling preview, because we're using a combination of both RAM for playback as well as persistent disk caching so that we don't have to re-render frames. And we even do this on a layer-by-layer basis. So if you make a change in one layer, it doesn't have to re-render absolutely everything in the comp. So a lot of that modernization is now really, really starting to take effect. We're really seeing an improvement in performance over what we released last year. And we're going to continue. This is an evolving process here. So even what we're showing you here today is not the kind of the finished results. The team is still hard at work, kind of working on new and interesting ways that they can modernize and enhance the performance. And I love features like this because it means every After Effects artist is going to benefit from this. You know, this is one of those things that if you've done work in the last year dealing with color-managed workflows, you may have noticed like the performance was one of the issues that we've been working really hard on improving the performance. When you have color management turned on in After Effects, and again, this release, we're seeing a big benefit and an enhancement in that. And it goes hand in hand with the work that we've been doing with the ACES color experience. There are color profiles. If you work in Hollywood, if you're familiar with what the Academy has been working on to kind of smooth out the pipeline on visual effects, there are profiles now in color management in After Effects that enable you to use ACES 1.0 across After Effects. Now, we've also been improving just how the user interface works when we're going through and redrawing the screen. So this is kind of an example of one finished comp here where you can see multiple layers of this surfer. I can open up a separate comp with a different camera angle so you can kind of get a sense as to what's going on with this. And you can see some different things that are being drawn on the screen as the camera is kind of moving through Z-space across these different layers here. All of that work to kind of draw these overlay functions, again, something that we've been working really, really hard on. This particular comp, if I just tap the M key, you can see all of the different keyframes of all of the different masks that are going on inside of this particular comp. And if I select this layer, you can see all the different masks that are actually happening inside of this particular comp. This is one of those roto jobs where there's just a lot of work being done, and you kind of have to have different transparency levels depending on what part of the body and what type of motion blur is happening in the shot. So you have to roto each of those different areas separately. And just that ability to have all of those masks displayed on the screen and keep the performance in the playback, we're leveraging the graphics card and the computer more than we ever have before. And there's a new preference to turn that functionality on so that the user interface components in the preview, in the composition preview panel, take advantage of the graphics card to do all of that work. If you want to turn that off, there's a new control over here to say include or not include the masks. So if I turn that off and hit play, it'll show me my comp without all those masks being shown until I pause. And if I want to turn that off completely, I just deselect the layer. All right, one other area that we've been doing a lot of improvement on deals with image sequences. Now, how many here use sequential files when they're doing compositions? How many here go out and get their cup of coffee after they do an import of like a 10,000 frame? Okay, see a couple of hands going up. After Effects has been using image sequences for 15, 20 years now. And one of the things that we had in place inside of After Effects was a system to do a really, really thorough check of every single frame of the file during that import process. We're still leaving that inside of After Effects, but we're actually now making it a preference. So if you have kind of a file that you don't quite trust, you can go through and turn this little checkbox on. But what we're finding is most people, image sequences have just been around for a long time. We're changing the way we work with image sequences to just make it much, much faster by default. So as an example of this, let's just go into my project here, go into footage, and let's pick a tiny image sequence. How about, I don't know, how about 8,000 frames? How long would you expect that to take? Too long, right? To hit open, oh, it didn't even take 1/1000. It's an instant import. That's what I expect. So you guys who use image sequences on a regular basis, plan your smoke breaks or your coffee breaks based on importing your image sequences. You're going to have to find a different time to get up from the computer and go and do that moving forward. Now, another thing that I'd like to take a moment and talk about is the integration work that's been happening with Adobe Stock. Adobe Stock, if you're not familiar, is a service that we started offering last year for stock vector images, photographs, and video clips. And in fact, the video portion of Adobe Stock, just this year in January, we added an additional 100,000 clips to the library, all in 4K resolution or higher. So we're very, very committed to Adobe Stock. If you want to check out Stock, even if you don't have any of the Creative Cloud apps, you can just open up a web browser, go to stock.adobe.com. There we go. Looking at Mitch's profile here. When you're in stock.adobe.com, it's basically a big search engine on the first page here. And you can basically do a search on just about anything. I'm tempted to do a search on Vegas, but I really don't know what's going to be in that right now. So I'm going to pick something a little bit safer. I'm actually from Singapore. I've been living in Singapore the last 5 years. So we'll do a search on Singapore. Ah, beautiful shots of the marina. You can do filter your searches any way you want. In this case, I'm going to use a filter. We're just going to look for videos. And when I search on videos, I can also do a limitation to just show the 4K images if I want to work with 4K video. Stock is a fantastic service from Adobe. You can purchase different plans dealing with either images or video or both. Have credits, so you can see here I have credits for images, so I can very easily and quickly license them. Now, how does that relate to After Effects? Within After Effects, we have a panel called the Libraries panel, and Jason's been showing a little bit of the Libraries panel and how that works, how you can put various things into a library, have it synchronize across different apps. You can share a library, so if you're working in a team, you can share your library with different people on your team. They all have access to the same assets within that library. Libraries are integrated directly into Adobe Stock. So if I have a composition, maybe something like this, I want to do something different with this. The client's kind of taken a look at it and said, I like kind of that mirrored effect that you have going on there. All I'm doing is just using this mirror adjustment layer here. So I like the mirror effect, but I want something without the guy in it. Can you give me maybe a wave, just a simple wave? So using the Adobe Stock search engine directly within After Effects, I can just come in here, do a quick search. It will go through and search Adobe Stock directly. I can then choose to add a preview. I can click this button here to have this preview and save a preview copy of this directly to the library that I'm working on. And I can even from here add it to my project. And you'll see that this has given me a little QuickTime icon here. I can double click on it. I can see the image, see the video clip that we just saved from Adobe Stock. Now, I haven't paid for anything at this point, which is why there's the large watermark across the top of the image. This also may be a lower resolution than the original clip. I can right-click on it and go to the website, see all the properties, see the codec of the original file. All of that information is available to me if I need it. But the beauty of this is I can be creative with the free versions. I can drop this into my comp, kind of see how the mirror effect is going on this. If I need to, I can make some adjustments to this. But this kind of points out a problem that I see when we're working with stock video that I've had other people run into before. How many here have ever used some stock footage, rendered out the finished piece, and then suddenly you're watching, at the 35-minute marker of a 1-hour piece you're working on, suddenly see that watermark come up on screen again? I forgot to license that one. I forgot to go through and replace it. I did license it, but I didn't actually do the work involved in, taking the original clip and bringing in the licensed version and replacing it and re-adding effects. And Adobe Stock is all completely integrated into the apps: Premiere Pro, Photoshop, Illustrator, After Effects. All I have to do to license this image is right-click on it and say License Video. By doing that, it's going to give me a little pop-up. Do that one more time. There we go. That will ask me, hey, do you want to license this one? This is going to use one of your pre-purchased licenses for your video. So if the client is signed off on that, I'm ready to click OK. Once I do that, it will download the full high-resolution version of the footage. It will replace it in my project bin, and the clip will now be licensed, and the watermark will disappear automatically. So it's a really, really nice workflow. And this works the same whether you're in, again, Adobe Premiere, Adobe After Effects. It works with vector graphics. It works with stock images as well as video. If you guys have images, vector graphics, or video clips that you're not doing anything with, that you own, maybe you went on vacation, you shot some lovely footage, didn't do anything with it. I know I travel all over the place. I'm often shooting. I've brought lenses on the road with me in the past. Never end up having time to actually edit anything. Well, you can become a contributor for stock.adobe.com. If you want to, there's a gentleman around the back. There's a pod at the back. You guys are more than welcome to become a contributor, and you can actually make some money from maybe something that you have kind of sitting on a hard drive someplace. If you have beautiful footage, definitely come and talk to the gentleman from Stock. They'd be happy to talk to you. Okay, back over to After Effects for a bit. This next part I'm actually pretty excited about, and to show you this, I'm going to need to do just a quick search in the effects panel because I want to find an effect called Luma Color. How many here were sitting here for Robbie's demo earlier in Premiere? You saw the Luma Color panel. You saw all the features inside of the Luma Color effect over in Adobe Premiere. One of the things that the Premiere team has benefited from for many, many years is that the effect architecture inside of Adobe Premiere originated in Adobe After Effects. And what this means is they were able in the early days of Premiere to take a lot of the effects from After Effects, bring them over into Adobe Premiere. Plugin manufacturers who made plugins for After Effects were able to, you would get the benefit of being able to install those into Premiere Pro as well. So things like GenArt Sapphire and other types of plugins would actually work in Premiere without a lot of extra engineering work. One of the things that the Premiere team has been working on for the last few years, you guys all know about the Mercury Playback engine. We've talked about it to death for probably about 5 years now. But that whole idea of using the GPU, running the effects themselves on the graphics card so that you get real-time performance has been a big part of what the Premiere Pro team has been working on. It's really, really accelerated workflows over on the editorial side. Now that the foundation work has been done in After Effects to modularize the code, for the first time, we are introducing GPU-accelerated effects in After Effects that have that same level of performance and that same deep, rich, running natively on the GPU performance that we've seen over in Premiere Pro. So for those of you who also use Premiere, you'll recognize these badges right away. This badge on the Luma Color effect here in After Effects is the same badge that indicates that this is a GPU native effect running in After Effects for the first time. We're also using the same badging for 32-bit effects. So this is the same badge that you can see over in Premiere Pro for any 32-bit floating point effects. For those who don't know, 32-bit floating point for color work is sort of the gold standard for color. So it's very important to see that if you're doing something on a color effect. All right, so what does this mean? It means that if I have the Lumetri effect on, let's say, an adjustment layer, I get all of the same controls inside of After Effects that I would expect to see over in Adobe Premiere. This includes the new HSL secondary effects that you just saw Robbie demonstrating in Premiere running inside of After Effects. And this means that I have the same capability of pulling secondary color grading here inside of After Effects that you saw over in Adobe Premiere. What's even better is if I've started in Premiere Pro, if I've put the color effect on a clip in Premiere, and I right-click on it and say, replace this with an After Effects comp, that effect will translate over into After Effects. And again, now for the first time, that effect is going to be GPU accelerated inside of Premiere Pro. We're also showing the blur effect, the Gaussian blur effect, been around for a long time, now also GPU accelerated. So this is the first stage of this GPU accelerated effects that we've seen over in Premiere Pro being ported over and moved into After Effects as well. So this is going to really mean higher performance in After Effects than we've seen before. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is integration with Cinema 4D. How many C4D users out there? I got one over there. You don't count. No, you do count. But anybody else? See a couple people kind of raising their hands. Okay. Yesterday when I asked this question, I guess the Cinema 4D user group must have shown up because over half the hands went up. Because we typically see about 50% of After Effects users are also Cinema 4D users. So it makes a lot of sense to have a complete end-to-end workflow that work between these two applications. Cinema 4D, if you're not familiar with it, is a full 3D application. You can model, you can animate in Cinema 4D. After Effects, of course, is kind of 2.5D. It's more about compositing of images, taking video files, mixing them with 3D elements. So the two work really, really well together, and we want to refine and improve that performance. one of the new things that we're showing here is the idea of being able to start with text layers inside of After Effects. Here we've done a bit of an animation. We're using the wiggle effect on this, which is something that After Effects is kind of known for being able to do, a really nice organic sort of a wiggling effect. We've got a camera setup in this. There's a shape layer creating that ring. But these are really just 2D sort of postcard in space elements that we're working with. And we want to give them an actual Z extrusion here. We want to really make them look like 3D objects. So what I can do now in this new version of After Effects is export this out as a Cinema 4D file. So I'll go ahead and choose Export. Let's save this to the desktop. I'll call this one Wednesday, because it is. The show's going fast. And this is giving me a couple of options here. So I can choose how I want to export the text layers. If I want the text layers to be animatable in Cinema 4D, I want to do some more advanced work, be able to replace the text or randomize the text, I can do that by selecting text here. In this case, I just want to do a simple extrusion, so we'll go ahead and leave it as it is. It's giving me a little message saying that, hey, you've got like a black background and an AIF audio file. Those are not going to be in the, they're not 3D layers, so those don't get exported. But now at this point, I can go over to my desktop. There's my Wednesday file that I just saved. We'll go ahead and open that up. After Effects, of course, can work with Cinema 4D files. So I'll take this blank composition, just drag this and drop it in here. And now, the elements that were created natively in After Effects have now been converted into 3D elements in Cinema 4D. And I've got those 3D elements playing back inside of After Effects. So just a couple of clicks, and I've kind of done a round trip now with this linking between Cinema 4D and After Effects. Now you'll see this Cineware panel over here on the left. These are the options that I have of how the Cinema 4D rendering engine is actually affecting the what I'm seeing here in After Effects. So right now I have a software renderer turned on. I can see sort of a baseline plane that shows up in the background there. So if I change this to standard mode, this is more of a final draft mode. Now I'm actually seeing what this looks like over in Cinema 4D. So you can see everything comes across, and it looks really, really nice, really sharp. I'll just go ahead and make that fit to 100% here so we can see it a little bit better. There we go. And you can already see there's a bit of an extrusion on the text. That's not enough of an extrusion. I need blocky text. So how do I do that? Well, I would have to open up Cinema 4D. What if I'm just a Creative Cloud member? What if I haven't bought a license of Cinema 4D? Guess what? If you own After Effects, if you are a member of Creative Cloud and have downloaded After Effects, you have also downloaded a light copy of Cinema 4D. Every single version of After Effects CC has Cinema 4D included with it. And the way to access this is if you have a C4D file, you can choose Edit Original. It will launch Cinema 4D Lite. It's already on your computer. And now, there's the same composition. There's the same animation running over in Cinema 4D, and we can start to play with this and make some changes to this. Now, the other way of launching Cinema 4D, if you're just starting in After Effects and you want to get into Cinema 4D, go to New Cinema 4D File, and that will launch it for you as well. And of course, if you are a full user of Cinema 4D, rather than the light version coming up, you will have full access to the full version of Cinema 4D. Okay? But it's kind of one of those bonus features that I don't think a lot of people are aware of, that you do have a full 3D modeling rendering program included with your Creative Cloud membership. So it's a really nice bonus if you haven't played with it yet. All right. Thank you guys so much. My name's Carl Soule. Short break, and then Dave will take over. Thank you.